Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel if you are a returning subscriber, and if you are new, welcome to the channel. I am doing another entry in my, what am I going to call this? This is my mini binder, and I've been using it to document the monthlies and just as a way of keeping track of the monthlies that are released in the shop and just highlighting those verses that just really stick out to me during the month. And I just want to be able, plain and simple, just to be able to go back in and just open up the binder and look back and say, oh, this was July, and look at July. Oh, I remember the paper. It's so beautiful. And I remember the word and the message from July, and it was about true worship. And just to see the entries that I put together regarding true worship. So I can just flip through and I can look and I can say, oh, week 1, I focused on the highlights that were in the message, which were, how we worship God through adoration, through song, through repentance, reading, giving. And then week 2, we focused on, this was Acts 16:25. So that kind of a way, I want to be able to go back and look at it like this. But before I do this week's entry, I wanted to do a little separation of the weeks. So we've done 2 weeks so far. This is week 3. So I want to be able to separate them or create some kind of separator for those weeks. So I've got a little system I think that will work. So we're going to go ahead and get that done. So, okay, so that is what I'm going to do. So let me move this out of the way and slide that over there. So as my weekly separators, I wanted something to go with the tone. So I printed out some cardstock, pulling from this rosy pink that's in these florals over here. And so for June, well, I just realized I have that under, July. We are in July, right? Oh my gosh, get it together, Michelle. So for July, I want to use these colors as the separators, but I'm not going to put it in there I'm not going to punch the hole and put it in there just like that. If you know Michelle, you know she's going to be a little extra. So I was going to use some die cuts that were gifted to me from some wonderful friends, but I measured it out and it would fall like in the middle, and then I really wouldn't know how to handle the edges. So I'm going to use a punch that I got from Amazon, which is this punch right here. And hopefully it cooperates. I know, as heavy duty as it is, and it's really heavy duty, it only allows me to punch 1 page at a time. Anything more than that, it tends to get a little fickle. And even with 1 page, sometimes it wants to act up. I don't know if it needs oil. I believe I oiled it, but nevertheless, let me show you how that's going to look. So there are lines, and you would just line up one edge according to the line. That way you can get a continuous, I'm going to line it up before that black line, and you probably can't see it, but I can see it. It's very small. So punching it there, it gives you that beautiful decorative edge. And then I am going to line up the pattern with the pattern that's on the plate, and that way you can get a continuous pattern throughout your document. So I'm going to line it up here, right? And then when you, okay, let's not move. Got to hold it still. That way when you do your next punch, it gives you that continuous pattern. So I'm going to speed up this portion as I go through the other three pages, because we've got 3 weeks. So let's go. Okay, so I've got those all punched out, ready to go. And of course, I need some lettering that says week 1, week 2, 3, and 4. And I want it to be consistent as far as these separators. So I printed out some contrasting watercolor patterns on this cardstock in a darker tone so that the letters can pop off of this background. And I do have some die cut alphas, because first I thought to use some stickers, but these nice big bold alphas are here, so I am going to use them. And then I even have the numerical alpha and numeric. I could have used stickers, but again, these are big, and I can definitely repeat cuts on these. My plate is horrible. It is like cracked, so I'm going to toss this one. This one has been worn. I have used this ever since I got the big shot. I do have a replacement plate, but then I also have the magic mat, which I have never used, and then there's another plate on here. So I'm gonna see how this goes, so bear with me as I fiddle with this to get this cut. Okay, so I always have to look at the diagram because I always end up doing it like wrong. So I only printed one side, so I have to have my printed side down as the die cut goes flat. But let me put through this magic mat. I'm going to line it up right there. And then I want the word week cut out a couple of times. So let me go ahead and cut that out about 4 times. Of course, I'll need more as we get into August. Can you believe that August is right around the corner for us? August is there. Oh, that's right. There's one E. So I'm going to have to cut out several E's. I just realized that. Oh boy. So I'm going to lay this down here. I'm going to need 4 of these, and I'm going to need 8 of these. So I'll cut this 4 times, and I'll come back and I'll cut the E 4 times. Sounds like a plan. Trying to figure out the best way to make the most of this. But you know what? Just go for it. I'm going to turn this the other way since it's a little worse on that side. And let's just see. Let's see how this works. This is, I hear something. I don't know if it's doing something. I think it is. I put it back and forth a couple of times. Let's see. Let's see how, yep, we've got something. I don't have my little pokey tool. I got a beautiful one gifted to me from one of the members of my Facebook group, or I should say it was Tricka's Facebook group. But that is how it looks. So I'm gonna go ahead and get all of these cut, and then I will come back. So that you can see what I am doing, I'm going to show you as I'm finishing the last 2, I should say the last letter and the last numeric, because this is the last E. I've been putting just some Aleene's glue on the back of them, and I've been lining the dividers, I should say, one after the other. That way I can get them sort of straight. I did that after I did this first one, because I did this first one. I'm like, I'm good because I'm like in the middle. And I feel like I didn't put the one down yet. And I'm like, I was too far over, but that's okay. So this was the week 1 layout. If you can remember, that was the week 1. And this is week 2. So let's get our week 2 and punch that one. this is week 2. That way there's some separation and order. Even when I was taking my pictures, it was like kind of throwing me off, because it's like I'm taking a picture of both this page and this page, and I had to put a piece of white over it because I didn't want it to get confused as being the one, but they are separate. So this was week 2, which was last week. And I'll link the previous videos in the eye above. And this is week 3 that we're going to do. So I'm going to punch week 3 and also week 4. So it's just going to be sitting in there and ready. And this is what I will do for the months. So I have files with these different watercolor backgrounds. So I'll just keep printing and punching them to match each month. And that'll be my dividers. I like how that works out. And then at the end of the month, I have the other half of this top page to the back here to like close out that section. And then we will move into August, which we are quickly approaching. Anyway, this is week 3. So let's dive into week 3. I've dragged this out long enough, but I just wanted to show you that part of my setup. I'm going to speed up this part and do a voiceover as I do my week 3 entry for this week. We're going to be looking at Psalms chapter 63 verses 3 to 4 and talking about David. So let's get into that. Okay, so I lost some footage, but it's okay because I feel this video is going to be long enough. But my entry is probably the simplest entry, probably a lot simpler than the dashboards. No, I'm sorry, not the dashboards, but the dividers that I created for the weeks. All I did was to write out the verse, and my handwriting is not the best. It is not, but nevertheless, I made a go at it and I wrote it out in my handwriting. I alternated by using script versus straight print in writing out the verse. And again, it's Psalm 63 verses 3 to 4. And I love the Passion Translation version, which reads, "For your tender mercies mean more to me than life itself. How I love and praise you, God. Daily I worship you passionately with all my heart. My arms will wave to you like banners of praise." Oh, I love this. This was a psalm written by David, and it was when he was in the wilderness of Judah. And similar to last week, Acts 16:25, we talked about Apostle Paul and Silas. They're beaten really badly, thrown in jail, but they're worshiping. And here we see David, who's in the wilderness, a dry place. A place where there is nothing flourishing, and he even starts out 63 by saying thirsty for God, and he talks about being in this dry and weary wilderness, but he's still giving God such honor, such glory, such praise. And it reminds me of a conversation that I had just a couple of weeks ago. I was talking with my friend Lakisha, whom some of you may know on here, and we were just having a discussion. I don't know how the conversation came up, but we were talking about David. And then she says to me, she said, "Look at David. David, can you imagine that you have a friend, and you set your friend up to get killed just so you can have that friend's wife?" And we're talking to each other as friends, and we're both looking at each other, and we're pondering how David could have done such a thing, because we couldn't imagine doing that to each other. That's just like let's just say it, it's wicked. It sounds like something evil. He wanted Uriah's wife so bad that he made sure that he sent him out into the battle, and he sent him into the place where it was the hardest and the toughest of the battle to make sure that he would not come back. But then she said, look, God still called him a man after his own heart. I said, yeah, because if you think about it, yes, David wasn't perfect, as none of us are. I mean, he committed this really horrible act to his who he should call his dear friend. And then he goes behind and covets his wife. I said, but God knew his heart. God knew what he was capable of when he, pulled him out from the fields to come and become king. He knew he wasn't perfect. He knew that David was flawed. But what I told her, what I believe that God loved about David was that David was a true worshiper. David was a true worshiper. He was one poured out his heart before God, even as he says in scripture, like water. He just bared his soul, his everything. He worshiped God with all his might, all his strength, everything within him. David worshiped God. There was nothing that he held back. He just poured out worship on God. And he did it in the most genuine and heartfelt manner. And even in conditions like this, where he is in the wilderness, a hard, dry, desolate place, he still worshiped God. He remembered God in that time. And I'm like, wow, that is why God called David a man after his own heart. He wasn't looking on him and looking at his faults. He wasn't looking at his failures. He wasn't looking at his wrongs. He was looking at how he honored and he worshiped and he reverenced God. And it came from a true and pure place of reverence towards God. So that's what we were discussing. That's what we were talking about. And let me know your thoughts in the comments below about the conversation we were having, even about David and the things that he did and how God just loved him and even his how he loved David despite David not being perfect. But that's all of us. None of us are perfect. So I love to hear you comment and chime in on that as well. But this is why I love this verse this week. The devotions that I share, they have plenty of verses, but this one just jumped out at me. I even made like a separate entry on it this week, but it jumped at me. It's just something that just leaps at your spirit. And I just gravitated to it because I'm like, wow, you can feel the heartfelt worship in this verse that David was just pouring out on God. And that's it. That's it for my entry. I didn't have anything too invasive to do. Just wanted to write out my verse and just decorate the page a little bit. And that was it. And as you can see, I also had some extra pockets. Benefits of being a shop owner. I put those card pockets on each week. That way I could take my journaling card, write out my prayers, and tuck them into those pockets for each week. So that's what I did. And as you can see on the bottom of the front of the entry, I took Sister Susie because she represented David's verse where he says that my arms will wave like banners of praise. So I put her on the bottom of the page, but I didn't like how she was lined up. So at the end, you will see how I pulled her up, and I pulled up the little sticker with the verse on it, and I got new pieces and repositioned them so that they were a little angled a little better. God help me. always trying to get it perfect, but I redid it. So you will see that it looks a little different at the end, but that is my entry. If you enjoyed this, please give it a thumbs up. Also, if you are new to the channel, I hope you consider sticking around by hitting the subscribe button as well as notification bell. Select all, that way you won't miss any other videos that I upload. Anyway, friends, thank you for joining me on this week's entry. Be blessed.